And we bring to the table our Jennifer Nurick, who is going to be talking to us about facilitating healing and pain release through body communication and work. And of course, she will explain it a lot better than I will. So I will hand over to the lovely Jo. Thank you.
Hello, everyone. So first of all, I'd love to thank everyone for being here, because it's when we come together to create something that there's something potent. And having sat here from this morning and heard a lot about the spiritual selves and the spiritual body, and then with Jo just now, the parts work with inner child, the emotional self, it's quite a nice progression down into the body. Yeah, and thanking the IEHA for putting this conference on, and creating this space for us to be here. So I'm on Gadigal country in Sydney, by the ocean, very beautiful, very clean here. And I always wonder where we're sitting, each of us, where our local healing spot is, and if we know where that is. And often before I start something like this, I just sort of just tune into that space, because that's the area of the land. That's where there's a bringing together of energy, of ley lines. So if that feels right for you now, maybe just thinking about where's a spot that feels sacred to you, that's close to you. Is there traditional healing land close to you? And deeply honoring the custodians of that land, who in my experience are very present in the inner world. Bring yourself back in your own way slowly. So it feels like the right thing when we're starting to talk about the physical, to become aware of the physical that's around us as well. So a little bit about me. I've been involved with the IEHA. I was the president for 2 years before Christy. Before that, I spent many years training energetic healers to become certified and have insurance in Australia. I've spent a lot of time doing meditation and different spiritual practices from a number of different traditions. I've been drawn deeply into the Hindu tradition, Buddhism, Judaism. I grew up in a very loosely Christian household. And I found juice and benefit to me through all of those. And yeah, I felt quite privileged to be able to take bits of lots of things. I've studied kinesiology and Reiki and psychotherapy, counseling, lots of different kinds of energetic healing. And I found that in the last sort of 6 years or so, I've moved back kind of into the psychotherapy space and been doing a lot of exploration there, because the worlds are not so separate. So there's the energetic world and the psychotherapy world, but I see a lot of overlap in a lot of those practices. So healing through the body. So I learned about a practice called focusing about 17 years ago, and I was doing the energy healing diploma at Nature Care. Martine was one of my teachers, but I learned this practice from somebody, and I don't remember her name. But it deeply impacted my life. So I'll jump back now to, let's say I was about 15, and I had really strong menstrual pain. It was so bad, I would have to come home from school sometimes, really, really bad. And the only thing that would make it go away, I tried, you know, the hot water bottles and the this and the that, but the only thing that really made it go away was taking a paracetamol. So I would take a paracetamol that would last 2 or 3 days, and the pain would come and go in waves. It only really went away when my doctor put me on the contraceptive pill when I was quite young, and that did seem to make it go away. But again, I was taking a pill. And so that was the culture that I'd grown up in. You had pain, you take a pill, the pain will go away. Hopefully, when the pill wears off, it will come back. So I was still getting a bit of that pain in my, I was my late 20s, a little bit of that pain. And I'd learnt this practice in the course called focusing, which was about going into the body and communicating with the body. So I came home, I sat in my meditation room, and I thought, okay, I'm going to speak to my womb space. I sat down and I did what I'm going to show you. I communicated with my womb space. I had a conversation, and the pain when I started was probably a 6 or 7 out of 10. And it was like that often for about 5 or 6 hours a month. And then I finished the conversation and I got up from the chair to go and make a cup of tea or go and do something. And I thought, hang on a minute, let me just check in and see if anything's changed. So I sort of sat myself back down and I realized that the pain had completely gone. And that for me was an absolute revelation, that I could talk to a part of my body, that it would communicate back with me, and that could change the somatic experience in my body. So that for me was, like Joy was saying, the inner child work for her was a game changer. I've also done a lot of that work, and for me, it's a game changer too. This for me was the other part. And so the body for me, I found, is a very direct way into the subconscious. And somebody else was mentioning, you know, the subconscious being such a huge part of our reality. And I find that it's a very quick doorway in. We might think, oh, I've got a neck pain because I'm sitting strangely at the computer. That's what I might think in my head. But then when I go into my body, often my body will have something quite different to say. So the body is a doorway into the subconscious. And let me screen share with you here. Okay. So focusing was created by someone called Eugene Genlin. And he discovered, I say discovered because for me, I feel like these practices have always been there. I think that we've lost them and we're in a process of finding them again or reconnecting through the level of disconnection that we're going through. So I would say that he rediscovered it in a way, but he is sort of the founder of a practice that's called focusing. There is and the process is about connecting with the body. Now, one book that's very helpful, I've got it in a slide later on, is called The Power of Focusing. This has been written by one of his students, Anne Weiser Cornell. This little purple book, it's a really thin book, and there are 2 pages right in the middle that give you a step-by-step process, and the whole book kind of breaks down the steps that I'm going to give you in a minute. But I highly recommend this book. He wanted it to be shared amongst everybody. So in the 1960s, him and his team are wondering, why are some people seeing a lot of change in psychotherapy and other people, there's really very little change? Like, what's the difference? Is it the relationship between therapist and client? Is it the modality that's being used? What is it? And so they recorded hours and hours and hours of sessions. And what they found in the people who were experiencing a lot of change was that they would reference their body. So it would sound like, I got a text message from my mother. I saw it flash up on my phone. Oh, and I felt nauseous. I knew that she was going to want me to come over and do that and help her with that thing. And oh, even thinking about it now, I've got this like nauseous feeling in my stomach and my throat feels really tight. And so they did this thing where they were referencing their body. And they found that those people were having much bigger change, much more profound and lasting change. So then he started to think, okay, can we teach people who are not doing this naturally how to do this? And so he started to put together a process of teaching people how to start to reference their body and be in contact with their body, which, given the way that our culture is, the fact that, you know, so much of our processing is happening and we're valuing the mind and what's happening up here, it makes sense that through the way that we're being raised, you know, hand up, I need the toilet. Can I go to the toilet? No, you can't go to the toilet. Okay, so then, okay, you're learning as a child, okay, it's not okay to be hungry right now because it's not eating time. It's not okay to want to go to the toilet right now because it's not toilet time. So there are lots of little messages that we get as we grow up that help us disconnect from our body. If we're experiencing smacking, maybe, okay, I want to disconnect more from my body. Maybe we have other trauma that happens to our body. Okay, it's not safe to be in my body. I'll stay out. So I also see this as a bit of a defrosting process where we can start to reconnect with our body in a way that's really safe, where we're holding space for that reconnection. So here's the practice, and feel free to screenshot this or take a photograph. I've purposely put it on one slide so that you can keep it. And I thought we might do it together. Now, the whole energy of this practice, it's a bit like a mindfulness self-practice, is that we move in with an energy of curiosity. So we're just being super curious, like, oh, what's in there today? What's going to come up? With an energy of self-love and self-compassion. So I like to imagine that, like with one of my toddlers, if anything came up, that if they were having a tantrum, I'd hold space for them in that tantrum. If they were feeling really distressed, that I would hold them in that distress. I would validate that distress, and I'd let them know that I was there for them. So you can also see this work as a different form of parts work, in a way kind of similar to inner child, where there's a part of us that is aching. There's a part of us that is like stuck or frozen. And we're bringing in this beautiful defrosting energy, which is love. So it's like the spiritual Shakti, the spiritual energy of love and compassion. We're bringing into particular parts of ourselves that have got frozen or trapped or are holding something that we've been pushing away a bit. You know, sometimes we might have part of us that's saying, you know, leave your job, leave your job, leave your job, and it's getting stuck in the back of the neck. And there's other part that's saying, I can't leave my job because I've got to pay a mortgage and it's too hard to move jobs right now. I can't leave my job because so we have these sort of conflicting parts of self. And sometimes that voice that we keep pushing away, well, I have to go to work, shush, 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 it can sometimes get sort of almost stuck in different parts of the body. And we'll also notice that we often have favorite parts of the body, we can say, where we'll store these things. It'll be, there's the aching in the ovary. I know what that is. There's that backache again. Let's go in and see what it's about. So I hope today to share with you something that you can take away and use on an ongoing basis, because this is a daily practice. This is something I use daily. All right. So let's have an experience together. So if it feels okay for you, you might like to lower your eyes or close them. And maybe let's take a deep breath. So whenever we do a deep breath, that tells our nervous system that we're safe. So maybe deep breath in. And another one. And one more. And bring this energy of curiosity and unconditional love into our body today. And you can choose if you'd like to work with an area that's been a bit niggly, an area of pain, or you might just simply scan your body and notice if there's an area that feels like it would like your attention. And imagining that you can kind of move towards that felt sensation. And getting really curious about it. If it had a symbol that resonated with it, what would the symbol be? If it had a color or a texture or a density. And often it's a bit can be a bit blurry at the beginning as it starts to take form, letting it know that it's very safe. And you just want to get to know it a bit better. And then we're going to deeply listen to that part. So you might ask it if it feels right. If it had a voice, what would it like to say? And just go with the first thing that pops into your head. And whatever it has to say, validating it, giving it space. Ah, I hear you. I hear that. That's important. And asking it if there's anything else it would like to share. And whatever is said, validating it, allowing it, making space for it, deeply hearing it. Noticing how far away or how close it wants you to be to it. It might want you to be really close and kind of hold its hand for support. Or it might want you to sit further away. Wherever it wants you to be, that's okay. And then asking it if there's anything that it needs from you. What might make it feel supported? And as best as you can, giving it that thing that it needs. Or if it's something to do later this week, if you can, committing to doing that thing. And just seeing if that felt sense needs anything before you finish. And you might get a sense that it would like more time with you. And if that's the case, maybe committing to returning to that part in the next 24 hours. And thanking it for speaking to you and for being there. And checking in with how it would like to be left today. If it would like to stay in that part of the body or move somewhere else. I'm going to start to come back to the whole body. Being aware of the feet on the floor. Maybe rubbing the hands on the thighs and noticing the friction. And then we'll open the eyes and looking down first. And then slowly looking over one shoulder. Noticing a few things in your space. And then slowly over the other shoulder. Again, noticing a few things in the room as we start to come fully back. And when you feel ready, we'll reconnect as a group. Okay, so maybe let's type in the chat box just any comments or reflections about that. Yep, serenity, curiosity, allowing more stillness was my message. Yeah. I had a part that was angry and showed me an axe and had a very clear directive. So that was helpful. And I notice for myself when I get that message, often there's in my body goes. And so in the somatic world, that's a felt shift. Whenever there's that, there's a felt shift. So always just watch that. Yep, Josephine said, so powerful. I communicated with the pain in my lower back and it told me to eat less and stretch more. Reiki. Do Reiki on myself and get rid of all draft manuscripts and believe in yourself. Yes. And I love it when it's so specific like that, because sometimes our head thinks, oh, I've got a sore back because I was doing the gardening, or I've got a sore back because of something. But actually, when we drop down into it and we get into the unconscious, the subconscious, what's in the body, it's something completely different and often very specific. Same as me, I got a very specific directive. And that brings me to another book, is The Body Keeps the Score by Bessel van der Kolk. And this is where it's gone full circle for me, because I do a lot of trauma work, a lot of attachment work in my practice. And this book basically gives all the science explaining how the body has to be brought into any modality where we're treating trauma. And I went to a trauma workshop run by the Blue Knot Foundation, which is the leading trauma educational organization in Australia. And it was mostly somatic work. And it was just so beautiful to see that, because as soon as we enter into the somatic, we enter into the energetic. So yeah, just very exciting to see all this. It's called bottom up. So the top down is very cognitive, change your mind, change your life. Bottom up is very much work with the body, work with what's coming up through there to change what's going on. And it's all brilliant, right? My own journey has been a little bit from here, a little bit from there, a little bit from there, and the melting pot. And I always feel that you get drawn to where you need to be for that next part of the healing process. And yeah, so much good stuff. So I'm so glad that you're all here.